a lot of the issues that NIMSI is trying to tackle are actually historical in nature. The nature of our development means that we haven't paid sufficient attention to important issues like identification. We haven't looked at the link between identification and national security, identification and economic growth and inclusion. Um, so you've had organizations like NIMSI that have been traditionally underfunded for years because they are not pouring concrete and building bridges and railways. So we haven't focused on those things sufficiently. And then government has also had what you could term pet agencies, where certain heads of those agencies have a lot more access to political power and have therefore been given more resources and greater focus. So they run off and develop their own identity systems, whether it's driver's licenses or voters cards or various things, which has become really, really difficult to harmonize. You talk to a lot of Nigerians, apart from what they say about the stress of getting identity, they will also tell you that government has all my information. I've registered 10 times for different things. Why do they keep asking for the same information? Why can't they just get together and talk to each other? But because you can't practically unwind all of those things, is the reason why we've adopted an ecosystem approach that says, okay, if you have one sort of ID or the other, at least it will bring you into the net, and we can look at the gaps and see how we can address some of those gaps. Let me also say that there must be some rigor to getting national identification. There must be. Whether you want to get national identity in the UK or the US or Germany, there must be things you must provide to enable the government know that A, the person is a Nigerian, B, that person is not a security threat or somebody that is coming to cause some sort of havoc. So there is a need for some rigor. But having said that, the process of ensuring that rigor must be clear and unobstructive to people. So you find out that until recently, because NIMSI had no money, it couldn't, although it was in all 36 states, it just could not cope with registering the number of people that were there. And so this idea of moving to enrollment agents is a really good one. And that's why we've been able to add something like 20 million or so new enrollees in just one year. The second thing, of course, is that there needs to be some sort of incentives and sanctions. So, you have an ID, there's an incentive to get a loan in a bank, to get a job and all of that. But you also find that you need to have something to cut off for people to actually comply. And that's why, because you can cut off electricity, people tend to go and pay and get that electricity. Because you can't cut off sanitation, people tend not to pay their sanitation rates. But having said that, at the start, there was, of course, all sorts of problems about being able to access NIMSI offices to register before we then had the enrollment agents. There was also the issue of availability. Sometimes the working hours that the enrollment centers operating are when people are at work or doing something else. So again, it's why NIMSI started to make it possible for people to register out of hours. It's why the passport office started opening on Saturdays to clear the backlog. So the issues are there, but the traditional problems still need to be solved. For this thing to be sustainable, NIMSI needs to be properly funded. We also need to place a lot of focus on the National Population Commission, which is responsible for registering births and deaths. The linkage between the data that the Population Commission holds, the sensors that they do, which they haven't done in about 16 years now, if I'm not mistaken, the data held by the passport office of the Nigerian Immigration Service, the Federal Road Safety Commission's data on driver's licenses, and as well as the data held on voters by INEC. It is crucial that this ecosystem project begins as soon as possible, so that the closer integration of all this data can make a lot of progress. Lastly, one of the issues that hasn't been mentioned as a barrier is the issue of data protection. And how do I know that government will use my data properly? Nobody wants to submit data for government and find that it's being used to wrap suya when they go to buy it. And so it's vitally important that that the data protection legislation is put in place, and an independent data protection office is created. It shouldn't have the full paraphernalia of a usual government bureaucracy. It should be a lean, focused organization that is able to ensure that that we have both the right to be forgotten when government doesn't need the data anymore, and the right to be remembered, particularly for people in rural areas who don't have any access to government identity. With regards to the steps that need to be taken, the good thing with having international partners in this kind of thing is that it provides a level of immunity from politics and from what we call the Nigerian factor. So they'll make sure that the procurement is done properly. It won't just be, Joe Abah as minister or SGF saying, give this to this person. There'll be a proper procurement process which will be open and transparent. There'll be a proper project office which will be based on capacity and competence. It won't just be me saying go and employ all my relatives in there. There'll be a legal framework, and the Data Protection Act that I talked about is a case in point. And I'm actually pleased that NIMC has gone back to having the Data Protection Act properly drawn up, because the first draft I saw had this same government kind of mindset. We're going to set up all these huge departments and have all these directors, and that's just a recipe for making things difficult to do. So working with these international organizations brings a certain discipline to the way we do things, and also make sure that the good thing though is that it makes sure that it is still owned by us. Our hope was actually that by 2023, majority of Nigerians will have a form of digital identification. So the sooner we can start on this, because what has been achieved so far, as I said, has been achieved largely because we've brought in other partners. We haven't said, it must all be done by government. It would have been very, very difficult if we had insisted on doing everything with government alone. So in the same way that in working with other organizations, we're thinking in other parts of government, we're thinking of an ecosystem approach. It is also an ecosystem approach that would work going forward. Carrying on board the private sector, the NGOs, development partners, and their specific programs. I think that was the point that Tolu was making. The financial sector, the banks, the telecom industry, building an ecosystem around this is what I will focus my money on.